Hi, I'm Chris with National Parents Organization, and today I'm here with Linda Reutzel, and she's here to talk to us about Grandparents' Day and why that's so important. And she's also going to tell us a little bit about her involvement with the shared parenting movement. So, Linda, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Linda, tell us a little bit. What is Grandparents' Day, and why is it so important?
I think parents have their days, and grandparents are very special people in the lives of their grandchildren. They give them a little sense of security and connectedness to our past, and grandparents are very important to children.
Yeah, and I take it you're a grandparent yourself.
I am. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter.
And so you have experience with this stuff, and I've been around families quite a bit. But I mean, kids just love to have these sort of extra parents around, and often I know it's kind of a joke that they kind of spoil them a little bit more than mom and dad will, right? So it might get them some favor.
Yes, I mean that's the beauty of being a grandparent. My granddaughter knows that she has her pawpaw wrapped around her little finger, and that's a good thing to know. That's a good thing for her to know. So we've got great relationships, and I got started in the shared parenting movement when my son went through a divorce, and his time with his child was severely limited, and there was no reason for it. They both lived in the same community. They both equally parented, and so that's why I got involved in it, because I think all children need great relationships with, especially both of their parents, but they also need to know their grandparents on both sides, their aunts and uncles and cousins, and when you limit one side of the family to only every other weekend, you limit the time that they get to be with their cousins, their aunts and uncles, and their grandparents, and they lose that connectedness to that family, and that's a shame because our family courts should actually encourage go beyond encouraging both parents to stay actively involved in their children's lives, and with that brings grandparents and extended family also.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many benefits that grandparents bring to children. And, when you limit one side of the family unnecessarily, like a lot of our family courts do, I don't think they really understand the sort of downstream effect that this has. Do you?
No, I don't think they do. The judge, when he gave my son every other weekend and one day through the week, he had no idea how close his daughter was to myself and my husband. I've got a daughter that's her favorite aunt. I have a my mom, who's 98 years old, is still living, and she has a particularly great relationship with her. But the judge knew none of that, didn't even care about hearing all that, and he just automatically gave the mother the bulk of parenting time. And in this day and age, I find that just really hard to believe that a judge doesn't realize how much a child needs both sets of parents, both parents and both extended family, especially fathers. We know all the statistics on fatherlessness are just abysmal. And for a judge to say, nope, I know you want equal time, but I'm going to tell you to spend less time with your child. That's ridiculous. It's just ludicrous.
Yeah, I agree. It's terrible. But tell me a little bit. How did the relationship between you and your granddaughter change, and with grandpa too? And how did that affect both you and her?
Well, I happened to be my granddaughter's babysitter. When she was born, she had open heart surgery. And so when her mother had to go back to work, I I offered my house, and I said I would babysit her because she was getting over the surgery, and I just kind of hated to see her go into a daycare setting. And so, with me babysitting her from birth, they got divorced at 4. We were very close, very tight, and we still are, and we still are. But after you could tell that she didn't like it at the beginning. whenever her mom would come get her, she would start crying because she was used to being at her dad's house and having us around a lot. I will say that after a couple of years, um, my son went to his ex-wife and said, I need more time with my daughter, and Avery needs more time with us, and I'm going to take you back to court. And there's no reason for us to spend that kind of money when she needs to see me and my side of the family just as much as she needs to see your side of the family. And they did agree. So we are doing 50-50 right now, and it's working out perfectly. I feel so lucky that I get to see my granddaughter as much as I do.
Well, bravo for him to to have the courage to ask her directly, and good for both of them for being able to agree. But
That's true. Yeah.
I think this is a great example and maybe a unique perspective that you can give because you've now seen sort of the standard, I hate to use that word, the standard parenting plan that we see so often across the country, and then a 50-50 shared parenting plan. Can you talk a little bit about the contrast between those two situations?
Well, with she was 4 years old when they got divorced. And so, that first year she was in a daycare setting, which was hard for her because she was used to being in my house as a babysitter. And so that was, pretty hard on all of us for the first year or so. And then whenever she goes to school, my son wanted to be able to help her with her homework, talk to her after school, put her to bed at night, have those kind of moments with his daughter. And that's when, he said, we're going to go back to court because he didn't like it anyway. But, you hate to make lawyers rich on on the agony that a family court puts people through. And that people are at the lowest they could possibly be when they're going through a divorce. They're fighting, they're angry, and the way that we're doing now just encourages more fights and more anger. And I absolutely believe if we have a starting point of 50-50, have a rebuttable presumption, that is going to cut down on the fights, that is going to cut down on the cost of a custody fight, and both parents will be richer, will have more money to take care of their child, and will be better off. They'll get over the anger quicker because they'll both be on an equal setting. And now with lawyers dangling this little fruit, well, if you get the bulk of parenting time, you're going to get child support, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. That just feeds into the anger that they already have, and it's a shame.
I totally agree. Did you see any sort of a shift in your granddaughter when she went from, spending sort of minimal time with you and your husband and spending time with her grandparents to, spending more time with you as grandparents? Was there kind of a shift? Was she, happier? Her moods better? Did she have less mood swings, that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, she was happier. She was much happier, and she's much happier now. And when a child is limited to how much time they can spend with the parent, they don't realize that it's the court's fault. They don't realize that, my son wanted to spend more time with her, but she doesn't know that. She's in her mind, she's thinking, well, why doesn't Daddy want to be with me very often? So it really affects their self-esteem, affects everything, because nobody's going to tell them. Her mom's not going to say, well, I won't let your dad have you 50-50. And her dad doesn't want to say anything negative about her mom. So she's just there to think about why she's not getting equal time with her dad. So she makes her own thoughts there.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I mean, in a lot of cases, the court papers say you can't say anything to the kids, right? Because it's understood that, dragging the kids into this conflict is only going to be worse for them. But you're right. It does leave them open to interpretation. And we know little kids have great imaginations, right? And so they can
Yeah,
imagine all sorts of things. That's most of it's probably pretty far from the truth. So,
that's right. That's
and
right.
and I've talked to other people who've grown up in situations where one parent wasn't very involved, and then growing up to become an adult, and then finding out the truth, right? And being really angry at the other parent because they just assumed something, or the parent told them something in some cases, and they found out that it wasn't true what they had believed all along. So
Yeah.
the truth can set you free, but it's really harder when you're dealing with young kids because you have to be careful about the conflict that you bring them into.
That's right, because you don't want to hurt her relationship with her mother. I want her to have a great relationship with her mom. I want her to have a great relationship with her dad and with both sets of grandparents. We're all there. We all love her to death. We all just, it's family court just encourages the fight, and there's just no need for it. No need for it at all.
Absolutely agree. So talking about family court, I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about your experience in family court, because my guess is you might not have had much opportunity to be heard in court in this case.
Oh, no.
A lot of times I think the grandparents are sort of left out, and they really don't get their day in court. And what's your experience around that, and how does that make you feel?
No, I did not get. I didn't speak up in court, and this was pretty quick. There wasn't any allegations of abuse. There wasn't any, as far as craziness on a divorce. This was on the lower end. There wasn't anything, but the judge had a bias, and even though my son wanted 50-50, he didn't get it. And right after he got the order that he was going to get every other weekend, he had his lawyer file a motion to set aside, and he got back in court, and the judge looked at him and said, "I gave you week to week in the summer." And my son said, "What about the other 9 months? There's 9 more months that I want to see my daughter." But he didn't change it. I mean, that is bias. That is just straight bias. There is nothing, when a father wants more time with his child, like I said, in this day and age, I cannot imagine a judge telling a father to spend less time with their children.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
just
especially in we're in 2022 when we're recording this, and there's such a huge push now for diversity, inclusion, in a lot of companies, and we see that in the media all the time, and we're as a society we're moving towards being more and more equal, but it seems like that in family court things are sort of lagging behind the rest of the country.
yeah, yeah. And another thing on going on talking about grandparents. Grandparents have always been important, but even now, even more, because both parents usually work and they do need help, picking the child up from school, taking them to sporting events, this and that. So grandparents are really more involved in their grandchildren's lives now more than ever. And they're very important to a child, and they help out so much.
I totally agree. And not having that voice in the family court, what was that like for you? Was it hard to, was it emotionally hard? Did it make you angry? What was that like?
Well, it did make me angry when the order came down, and my son was just, he couldn't believe it. He said, I got the same amount of time with my daughter that somebody that wasn't even hanging, didn't even have anything to do with their kids, every other weekend.
Hmm.
And so, none of that was really taken into effect, or into account. So anyway, after it happened, I did my research, and I found National Parents Organization, who's been fighting this for years, and I started going to my capital in Jefferson City, and actually we've had bills in Jefferson City for 8 years now. It is unbelievable that a bill that only wants to start out at equality, when you're talking about parenting time for children, just equality between the parents, 8 years, and we can't get it passed. That's a strong lobby of the bar association, lawyers. They don't want it. They're resistant to the change. Um, I don't think any lawyer cares whether you have equal time with your kids or not. They just want to make sure you pay them first before you get it.
Yeah, and we've seen that same theme across the country. And 8 years is a long time, and we
It
know that
is.
it it takes a long time to get a bill passed, but certainly there are lots of laws that are passed in less than 8 years. And can you talk a little bit about the evolution of some of the things that you've tried in Missouri?
Well, so actually, the rebuttable presumption of equal parenting time, we have got it through our House of Representatives 3 times, full House vote, overwhelming majority. We have gotten it on the Senate side through Senate committees, but that's where it goes to die, and they never bring it up to the Senate floor for a vote. Um, they use we have one senator that threatens to filibuster anytime that bill might come up, and usually it's toward the end of the session and they want to get so much other stuff done before it ends that they just don't give it time to come up because so I mean I blame the one senator for always filibustering it, but I also blame our majority Republican leadership. If they would make it a priority, they could get it through.
Yeah, I think we've seen similar things across the country, and certainly sort of parallels what we've seen in Kansas. Although we haven't quite had the movement that you've had there, but we have seen things go into committee and then die.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a very strong legal lobby here, and which is always disheartening because whenever they talk in the committees, it doesn't, they always sound like they have the best interests of people in mind, but in reality, they just don't want to change anything because, that would mean less money in their pocket.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, and it's always been in the Judiciary Committee in the House, and we've passed it out of there multiple times. The lawyers on that committee are are, um, are really looking out more so for Missouri's children as opposed to their pocketbook.
Hmm.
But it does get passed out, so it gets passed out of that committee on the House side, but it stalls in the Senate.
Yeah. And, I, I mean, it is very frustrating to try and get these laws through, and then you get into where it just kind of comes to a grinding halt. So, what's up on deck for Missouri for next year? And tell us a little bit. Does the legislature go all year round, or do they just are in session part of the year?
Just from January to May. So in January, now that they'll have pre-filing in December, and so we'll get that bill pre-filed in the House and in the Senate, and then we'll start the long process of getting it through committees again and getting it to the floor. Now, the senator that is always filibustered is no longer there because of term limits. So I am a little hopeful that maybe we could get it done this year.
Well, yeah, that would be great. And has
Uh-huh.
has there been any? Now we've had other states now pass shared parenting, fairly really strong shared parenting. In fact, West Virginia, Arkansas. Has that movement really influenced people at all?
Well, I mean, I've used it. I've made sure that everybody, all the representatives and senators, realize that a lot of states are ahead of Missouri. I mean, do we really want to be this far behind? So I have used their success to try to push our success. But it's just different in Missouri because most of the legislators that I talk with are in favor of it. No, we've passed the full House by a great majority. And it always passes through the Senate committees. It just leadership just stalls it, and it doesn't get on. It's never had a full vote on the Senate floor. And if it did, it would pass because most of the senators would vote for it. So
So
that's frustrating.
Oh yeah, it's definitely frustrating. Tell me a little bit specifically about being a grandparent and advocating for shared parenting, because a lot of times parents. I talked to a lot of parents that want to spend time and go and advocate for these things at the state house, but they have full time jobs. They can't spend that much time, taking a days at a time to go up and talk to people. What's the general consensus that you get from legislators when you talk with them, coming from that grandparent role?
Uh, most of them have experienced a divorce in their family, so most of them understand what I'm talking about, even from 8 years ago. I mean, I had to do a little educating on the benefits of shared parenting and on the research against on fatherlessness. So we did do some educating on that part. But most people have gone through divorce. Their family's gone through divorce. They got friends going through divorce, so they understand the issue. Um, I I am still working, but I work from home, and I do have I do have I can go to Jeff City when I need to, and then just do my work later on, another day or something. So it really has worked out for me. And I do realize that parents, they're working, trying to make a living, trying to, be with their child and all this. So I'm happy to take up the slack and go up there and try to get this through. But there's a lot of advocates in Missouri that go to the Capitol, once a week, once a month, to try to push this issue.
Well, that's good, and it's really important to sort of stress that to make these things happen, you do need boots on the ground, so to speak. At the Capitol, or talking to people in their home, in their hometowns, and where the legislators are, right?
Right.
Because you have to be in constant contact with them. Otherwise, all these other issues, that are not related to shared parenting, will take precedence, because that's what people are talking about. So if you can get people talking about it, getting in front of the legislators, I think that helps out a tremendous amount.
And at the beginning, the first few years, we had several people testifying at our hearings, but after a while, when it's the same language, the same bill, we know we're going to get it through the committee. You hate to really encourage anybody to take time off from work or whatever, because we know it's going to get through a committee because we've done it for 8 years.
Well,
So we're past that needing hundreds and hundreds of people at the Capitol. What we need is just uh, we need it to be voted on in the Senate.
yeah, you just need that final push to get it through. It sounds like.
Right, right.
And as a grandparent, I mean, what do you think your unique perspectives are with this, or what advice do you have for other grandparents that may have been in a similar situation like you were originally?
Well, I mean, they can always, advocate for shared parenting. You can write letters to your congressman, to your senator. You can write articles and have them published in your local newspaper. Getting the word out is I don't want to say half the battle, but it's part of the battle
Hmm.
to educate our the public about what's going on in family court. Before my son went through a divorce, I'd see people divorce, and I'd see that the dad just got every other weekend, and I was so uneducated about this. I thought, well, I guess that's just all he wants. I
Hmm.
guess he just wants
Right.
every other weekend, and people do think that, but it's not true. It there's fathers all over the place that are depressed because they can't see their child more than they do, and they some of the arguments on not changing it. One of them is from the domestic violence lobby, and they say, well, if you allow men to um, have 50-50, more children will be abused. Well, that is absolutely hogwash, because if judges can give every other weekend to a man, obviously he's not a threat to his child. So that doesn't register at all. Another argument that I've heard is, well, men just don't want to pay child support. They want time with their kids, so they don't pay child support. And I look, men will spend tens of thousands of dollars to get more time with their children. Do you think they're doing that so that they don't have to pay $500 a month child support? Of course they're not. They will spend everything they have to get an extra day with their child because they love their children just like their mother does, and they want time with them. And another thing with these, we're talking about red flag laws all over the country now, and in family court, the red flag law in family court is an allegation. So if someone throws out an allegation of abuse or maybe you drank or whatever, the judge automatically puts, usually the allegation is against the man, automatically puts him on supervised visitation, where he has to start the long process of going through anger management or going through counseling or whatever, and he has to have supervised visitation. And it's just on an allegation. You're guilty without. There's no due process, is what I'm saying. Normally you come into court innocent until proven guilty, but in family court, if somebody throws out an allegation, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And that is just, that's atrocious that happens, because it is expensive and time consuming, and sometimes you can't ever come back from it.
Well, yeah, and that's, I think, when you look at males and they're involved in family court situations, the suicide rate is incredibly high compared to, the standard, statistics. And so, it puts men in an incredibly risky category. And I think that men also experience that if they make the same allegations, or even if they're not allegations, and if they're true, that they're not believed in family court when they say things, against the other party. And I think that's incredibly frustrating for a lot of people.
That's right. To me, if an allegation is thrown out, it is put out in family court, the divorce needs to stop, take it to criminal court. Because actually domestic violence is a crime, and you can't just throw those allegations out willy-nilly. And that's, you have to have some kind of consequence for that. And most false allegations do not have consequences. They might find out that it's false, but they never, the liar doesn't get any jail time or any lose any custody or anything like that.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that everything that you've been pointing out, the false allegations, the automatically guilty, we hear that all over the country. That's not, it's amazing how, if you heard it was, specific to one state, you can say, well, that state system is flawed. But here you have individual systems, and they all work like that, and it's extremely high conflict, and it's very damaging for all the parties involved.
It is, and just think of the children that they have to live through that too, and it's ugly in family court. I think a rebuttable presumption of equal custody will stop some of the fights, because that will bring both parties to the table, and they will have to negotiate. And because they and the false allegations should have consequences. That should happen also.
I 100% agree. I've seen that time and time again where, a party can just throw an allegation out there, the court acts on it, it's proven false, and then the court does nothing against the
That's
person
right.
that threw the obviously false thing out there. It's just absolutely incredible.
It is.
It's so disheartening, and leads people to not have faith in our justice system. And when you can't have faith in the justice system, then, what's left? That's part of the basis of a good society, right?
Right.
And so having an obviously flawed system is really disheartening. So, what?
And lawyers know it's flawed. They know it's flawed. They know that. They know. They just are resistant to any change.
Well, I think they like the fact that it's flawed, right? Because it's
Well,
flawed, that gives them more freedom to do the crazy stuff that they do, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, Linda, tell us where can people in Missouri get in touch with you if they want to advocate or to volunteer? You think you have a Facebook page out there?
Yes, it's National Parents Organization, Missouri. Um, yeah. So, and my email is Linda Reutzel at sharedparenting.org. And anyone wants to reach out to me and help us in Missouri, I'm glad to have the help.
Well, Linda, we're sure glad that Missouri has you out there, and we wish you the best of luck in trying to get something through this year. Maybe this will be the year that finally you break free and we can have a big celebration and we can add you, Missouri, to the list of the states that have passed shared parenting. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed for that. And thank you for all of the hard work and all the things that you do out there in Missouri, and for giving people so much hope.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you do.
Well, thanks, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, thanks. Bye.